Welcome to the Foregate YouTube channel. This is Bill Straub. I am the Chief Blending Officer of Foregate Whiskey. With me here, I have Chris Luddig, Brand Ambassador. And we also have Kia from the Honey Barrel. And we've got some exciting news. If you haven't seen it online, Foregate Whiskey Company is going to be sold in Australia, and that's where Kia comes in. Currently, we're in 11 states here in the United States, plus about 3 or 4 different websites where you can get it around the states. But this will be the first time you can get it beyond our borders. And we are so excited and very excited to be working with Honey Barrel and Kia. So just starting out, Kia, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you kind of got started in whiskey?
Hey, everyone. I'm Kia from Melbourne, Australia, founder of Honey Barrel. So Honey Barrel started as a COVID business, like a lot of businesses started during COVID. I was always into collecting whiskey, started with Scotch, funnily enough, and then slowly moved into American spirits. It basically started during COVID. Me and my wife went for one of those walks that everyone did during COVID because we were in heavy lockdown. I mean, we had 5K radiuses around that we couldn't leave outside. And we could only leave the house for 1 hour a day. That's for grocery shopping or exercise. That's it.
Holy cow. We did not have lockdowns like that here.
No, we didn't.
And ours lasted, I think we're one of the most locked down cities in the world. So we went over, I think, close to a year of lockdown. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah. So during one of these walks, my wife just goes to me, "Is like, Kia, you've just been buying so much whiskey. Like, the garage was full of whiskey. Every cupboard was full of whiskey. Kitchen drawer. And if I could find a little space, I would put bottles of whiskey in it." And she's like, "What's happening with all this? Like, is this going to be our life now? Is the house just going to be filled with whiskey?" I'm like, "No, I do want to sell it eventually." And she's like, "Okay, then why don't you just apply for a legal license, start an e-commerce website, and just, do it that way." Approached a high school friend of mine who did a lot of e-commerce. We started Honey Barrel in 2020. I think March 2020 was when we first launched it. And almost straight away, as soon as we went online, at that time, I think you guys experienced the same thing as well. People were just buying a lot of whiskey. So the sales were really, really up. We were selling so much that I just didn't have time to pack it myself. And the stock, everything I collected over the years just went by. I think they all just disappeared within a month or so. So during then, I was like, okay, how am I going to get more stuff? So I think with a lot of e-commerce websites in the US as well, when you reach out to distributors, they usually want you to buy a lot of crap, basically, to get the good stuff. And I didn't want to do it. That wasn't Honey Barrel. I like to sell stuff that I like to drink myself. And just didn't want to go down that path. I remembered when I visited New York for a work trip in 2019, I tried Redwood Empire in New York. And I was really impressed by the branding. I mean, I don't know if you guys seen the bottles, like just that label design just looks beautiful. So I thought maybe reach out to them, see if they like to be represented in Australia. After probably a month and a half of Zoom meetings, emails, they finally gave us the green light. We started importing Redwood into Australia in mid-2021. I think it was August 2021. Within the first week, we sold 450 bottles just on our website, nowhere else. And I think within a month, we cleared a pallet. By the end of the year, we cleared 2 pallets. And bars, restaurants, everyone started carrying it.
Wow.
Fast forward
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a good start.
Yes, it was fantastic. 2023, I realized that we are missing that ultra premium bourbon and rye or American whiskey in the Australian market. I mean, we always have the B-Tacs, the Pappies, all the very high ends, but good luck finding them for a good price. Retail price for them are very high. It's not like the US retail prices, which is like $100 and something US dollars. Retail price here, if you can find it at retail, it's plus $1,000. So And sometimes you buy all this stuff, you pay $2,000 plus, and when you open it for a special occasion, you usually are disappointed, which is the case for most people, I think, when they start spending a lot of money on it. Anyways, thought we need ultra premium bourbon in Australia. And then I remembered a customer of mine had sent me a sample of 4-Gate. I think it was Port Perry Perry.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I loved it. And I was like, okay, let me just go do a little research. Read a few reviews about you guys. Watched a few YouTube videos as well. I mean, this is the normal thing these days now. People get their information and education from YouTube. So watched a few reviews. Decided to buy a bottle of Kelvin Collab 5.
Mm-hmm.
I bought that, I think it was mid this year. Yeah. I tried it with my wife, and she's not a big whiskey drinker. And she absolutely loved it as well. She's like, yeah, you have to talk to these guys. We need this in Australia. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. So then I emailed you guys, obviously, and then, went from there. But very, very excited for 4-Gate. I believe it has huge potential in Australia. And the quality, I mean, for the price, I think the quality is actually much higher than what you pay for it. And I mean, Finnish bourbon or Finnish rye is a category that I believe has a lot of potential. Both in the US market, especially in the Australian market, we don't have a lot of finished products. I mean, the most you get is probably just double oaked or toasted. That's it.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah. When we started 4-Gate, we were really kind of trying to bring in some of the flavors you get from different world whiskeys, because, Scotch whiskey made in Taiwan or India or Japan, they can use whatever barrel they want. We always have to use the new American white oak. Not be American, but new white oak barrel. So, we have this very narrow flavor profile, and we just kind of wanted to show people, if you take premium whiskey and barrel finish it in another type of barrel, you can bring all these extra flavors into it. And there were people who did barrel finishing in the US, but by and large, there weren't a lot of people who were finding the best whiskey they could and barrel finishing. And most people took their worst whiskey and barrel finished it to make it drinkable and would release it once a year. So we are trying to be a little bit different than most of them. And it's good to hear that you think we have a lot of potential there. We are so excited. The way this whole thing worked from our end, I just woke up one morning and I had an email from Kia that had come through our website, I think. And he said, yes. Are you interested in selling in Australia? We'd love to import it here and sell it. And talked to my business partner, Bobby, and we said, let's talk to this guy. We obviously looked at the website for, at first, and the website's fantastic. If anyone watching hasn't seen it, you really should check it out. There's a lot of neat things on it. If you're in Australia and you want some American whiskey, you need to check it out. I mean, they have some bangers on there that you can't get in the US anymore. But we'll run the banner down at the bottom. It's honeybarrel.com.au. And I saw a barrel strength 4 Roses limited edition small batch on there, for goodness sake. And I mean, if you guys can get that for, was it $6.99 Australian dollars or something in Australia, you should jump on it, because it is.
That's around 400 US,
fantastic.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, you would sell that easily. I mean, the moment it hit that website, it would be gone at $400.
So far, we've sold 2 cases of that.
That's unbelievable. 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 So, yeah. I mean, that's I've looked around your website, and you have Blue Run. You've got some Elijah Craig, obviously the Redwood Empire. One thing that I should say, and we do want to make this clear, is that Honey Barrel is going to be the exclusive outlet for 4-Gate whiskey in Australia. No one else is going to have it unless they buy it from Honey Barrel. So if you are watching this, if you're ever watching this and you're in Australia and you want to try 4-Gate, you have to go to honeybarrel.com.au.
Thank you for that. That was great advertising for Honey Barrel as well. I really appreciate it.
Well, hey, if it helps you guys, it helps us. So
thank you.
But no, you first learned about 4-Gate, you got a sample of it, you bought a batch. What batches did you guys get, and are you bringing into Australia to start with?
So the batches that obviously you guys were kind enough to send us samples of was as the Kelvin 5, the Core Range Split Staves, and then you've got the Split Staves Rye, Mizunara finish, Amberana finish, and the Kelvin 60 anniversary. Did I miss
I'm
anything?
actually sipping on that Kelvin 60 right now, and it is probably my favorite thing we've ever bottled.
It is
It's fantastic.
Absolutely fantastic. So I did a few private tastings for some bars and restaurants and just a few basically Instagram influencers and podcasters here in Australia, and every single one of them blown away. Like, I'm not like exaggerating anything. They were like, this is fantastic. When does it land? And a surprise was actually the rye. A lot of people love the rye.
It does really well whenever we take it out to events. I mean, Chris has been to 100 of them, 100 of these tastings and festivals, and I'm not really a rye guy myself. I really generally prefer bourbons, but man, you break that thing out in the tasting with 4 different bourbons, and it's one of the first ones gone.
Exactly.
I go through when we're doing these tastings out in the public and people are coming to try 4-Gate for the first time. I definitely end up going through more of the rye than I do the bourbon, because I'll tell people you got to give the rye a try. Everybody comes up, and I'd say 90% of the people are always like, I'm a bourbon person. I'd like to try this. Do me a favor, try the rye, then tell me what you think. And they go grab their friends and bring their friends over. And man, like I said, I will go through rye 2 to 1 at any of the events easily once people try the 4-Gate ryes anytime.
It's fun. We did a blind pick of with I think 7 or 8 people, and every single one of them voted for the 4-Gate. This is over the Parker's Heritage Heavy Charred Rye and the Michter's Toasted Rye.
No, those are great whiskeys.
Exactly.
They're fantastic whiskeys.
The 4-Gate came off the top, which is fantastic. It's just
awesome.
Just shows the quality, I think, for that rye.
Well, we love the way everything we've released so far is it's very atypical rye flavor profiles. They don't really taste like a straight up rye. I mean, the 95.5 Indiana rye, it's not hard to find it out there. A lot of companies use it. We tend to use stuff that has a little more age on it than most people do. Ours are all 7, 8, 9 years old. But the barrel finishing that we do, typically when you think of a rye, it's a very crisp, short finish, peppery type of sip. And when we use rum barrels or French oak, it extends that finish in it. It fools people into thinking it's a bourbon. It's funny how many people don't realize they're drinking a rye until you tell them.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So rye in the Australian market is a really unique place. It's like peated Scotch. Some people just don't want to try it. So we've done tastings, we've done whiskey shows, whiskey festivals that you want to pour people some rye, and they're like, no, I don't want any rye. I hate rye. I'm like, have you tried good rye? And they just don't want to. And if you can convince them to try it, I guarantee you 95% of the time they will change their mind about rye. Yeah.
That's kind of the way it's been with us. You'll occasionally get that one person who, before they even taste it, will say, no, I don't like rye. Like rye. Didn't like it. But yeah, I mean, 9 out of 10 people will just say, oh, wow, I didn't know rye tasted like this. I was in Tampa in Florida 2 weeks ago, and we did a tasting of 6 different batches, and the rye was the first one to sell out afterwards. And every single person down there said, I don't like rye. I don't like rye. I don't like rye. And they had one of our Port Perry batches. They had 2 bottles of that, and then a case and a half of the French oak split stave rye, and they were gone before any of the other batches sold out.
That's fantastic.
After the tasting, it was hilarious.
That is fantastic to hear. Yeah.
So what do you think? We're on a guessing game on our end. Of course, we've never had bottles shipped overseas. So what do you think the time frame is for getting it to market in Australia? I think everything is already shipped, but if people watching aren't aware, there is a miles worth of red tape to go through in terms of customs when you're importing and exporting whiskey. So it's a big delay. But what is your best guess on the time frame?
I believe it'll be early next year, probably mid-January. By the time it lands in Australia, we take it to our bonded warehouse, get all that stuff done, pay all the taxes. I mean, Australia is the 3rd highest taxed country on the planet. So it's, I think Iceland is first, then I think it's Norway, and then you've got Australia. So it's $100.80 per liter of alcohol for tax. Oh, wow. So yeah. So like on a standard whiskey or a standard gin, half of it is tax. So if it's a $70 gin, you're paying around $35 just in tax for that gin.
Wow. So what do you think? What do you think consumers in Australia are going to be paying for bottles roughly?
I think it'll be between $3 to $4.50
Australian.
Australian. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that sounds pretty. I look at some of the other ones on the site, and that's definitely in line.
Yeah.
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 Australians see that as a good deal.
No. I mean, my focus is I really want everyone to try 4Gate. So I don't want to price gouge it. I'm going to minimize my profits basically, so I can get as many people to try it as possible. And that's how we're going to go ahead with 4Gate as well, because I believe everyone should try it. Everyone should buy a bottle. And we're not looking for big profits. We're looking at this in a long term rather than just a quick buck. We don't want to make a quick dollar. I mean, if I wanted to do that, I would have done a million other things than this. So, yeah, definitely long-term growth for 4Gate in Australia.
It sounds good. If you're in Australia, that sounds like a pretty damn good deal to me.
Yeah, that's a very fair price when I've seen some of the other prices for things in Australia.
Yeah. I have your site on the other monitor over here, and like the Emerald Rye Blue Run, that's right in line with that. Lots of them. So I mean, hopefully that's from where I'm standing, it seems like a pretty good deal for people. The Foursquare collaboration with Bardstown Bourbon Company, for example. Oh, I didn't realize you carried Bardstown Bourbon Company. That's great.
Yeah. So there's another distributor that just started importing Bardstown into Australia. So we'll see prices drop for that on our website as well once we start getting their stock. Because what we do is we micro import at the moment. So I have a few friends in the US that basically just buy a few cases, usually just under retail, because you guys have the three-tier system, so it's actually really hard to source whiskeys at wholesale prices in the US. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
So more on the Australia market for those here in the US who aren't familiar. Honey Barrel can sell to, obviously, just like some of the websites here in the US, sell to consumers directly, but you can also sell to bars and restaurants. And how does all of that work? What's the big difference there between, obviously, no three-tier system, I guess?
No three-tier system. It's the only difference is you need just different categories of liquor licenses, basically. So as long as you have the right category, you can sell to anyone you want, and they're very easy to amend and change your liquor license. So it's just
very cool.
Yeah, just basically filling out a form and just paying the government a bit more money. That's it.
You're not taxed enough, clearly, so why not just pay a little bit more money?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that's that. Another surprise, actually, I want to mention, it was the Amberana finish. I have tried a few Amberana whiskeys, and I can say I did not like them very much. I love this one. Absolutely love it. And people that didn't like Amberana finishes have tried it. And in their lineup of the 4Gates, it was either the second favorite or the third favorite. That's
fantastic.
Impressive, I think that. And I know how hard it is to do an Amberana finish, because it is just the balance, getting that sweet spot is very difficult.
We were really, really careful to not over finish that. Because I've had a couple of Amberanas, and I love that I can taste them even when they're not done well, and I can tell how, in a general sense, what I liked from it that I was getting from the Amberana barrels, and you could kind of tell what was done wrong. It was too low of a proof. It wasn't spicy enough whiskey. It was overaged, whatever the case might be. So we were trying to walk that fine line. And what complicated it is that we only had I think we had 3 or 4 barrels of Amberana barrels, so we had to fill them twice. So we knew we were going to fill it the first time to where we liked it. Should we go a few more weeks, knowing that the second one's going to have less impact, and we would probably have to go longer to get it even in the ballpark as the first? So it was kind of a neat tightrope that Bobby and I were walking when we were tasting these, because we didn't know, what that second batch was going to do. Were they going to do nothing? Yeah. Was it going to do a little bit? Was it going to take us a year to get any effect on it? So it was pretty interesting. It was pretty interesting how that came out, and I think it worked out pretty well.
Fantastic.
I think it worked out pretty well. We went just a touch longer than we really wanted to on the first round. And then when it was probably just under where we needed on the second round, we blended them together, and it was perfect.
Yeah, that was fantastic. The Mizunara as well. I think Mizunara is the opposite of Amberana. Mizunara usually gets lost in whiskeys. You can't really pick those Mizunara notes. And with your Mizunara finish, you can actually pick out Mizunara. I haven't had a Mizunara bourbon that I could say this is different, but I think 4Gate is different. and you can definitely tell there's Mizunara.
Those are really fun for us because of the same underlying whiskey, and you can taste the difference between the two finished barrels so starkly when you try them side by side. I just think it's a fun release of two bottles.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. And
that Mizunara is one of my favorite releases this year for the 4-gate lineup by far, just because that Mizunara really did come out and it went so well with the original distillate. It's a perfect harmony for me.
It was, yeah, I completely agree. It actually does stand out, and that's I think that shows the art of your blending and how you guys could get that to shine through the bourbon.
One of the big questions that I had for you today is, what do you think the best way it is there's 4 of us that work at 4-gate to tell our wives and significant others that we need to make a work trip to Australia for a couple of weeks that won't end up with us sleeping on a couch or worse?
Maybe bring him here to Australia and then...
That's very expensive. Oh, goodness.
It's... yeah, I think definitely you guys should visit. Already people are asking me, when are we going to have the 4-gate team at events and shows and everything like that? I'm like, we're working on it. We'll make sure we'll get you.
Well, if the brand can grow over there and pick up a little momentum, then we'll make it a priority to get over there somehow, sometime, somehow.
Yeah, that'll be absolutely
definitely
fantastic.
will.
And that is my goal. So a bit of a news update as well. I've recently became partners in an advocacy group for American's whiskey.
Oh, cool.
So it's called Please and Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
We are 5 partners at the moment. Everyone has a lot of experience in the hospitality sector. So ex-bartenders. At the moment, one of them is a whiskey bar owner, which is probably the best whiskey bar in Australia. We've got a whiskey historian in Australia, a brand ambassador. It's just killer team, honestly. So we'll be doing a lot of educational work, advocacy, advertising, just promoting the brand, making sure that people's knowledge about American whiskey is actually correct, because there's a lot of misconception when it comes to American whiskey. A lot of people still have RTDs here in Australia, which is just bourbon and Coke cans. So that's
right.
huge in our market here.
They're pretty big here now. It's relatively new, but yeah, they've been huge in the last year.
Yeah, Australia I think it was the birthplace of the RTD, and
really?
I think the first bourbon RTD was made in Australia back in 1995. It was a Woodstock bourbon RTD, which is independent distillers at the time, back in 1995. And it was like the most Aussie slogan. Their slogan was "Cracker Woody," and it was a 12% ABV RTD, so 24 proof RTD, which is and
that's a lot
in a 440 ml can as well. So that's
a lot.
That is big. It's really funny because I was at an event with Eddie and Bruce Russell about 2 weeks ago. They visited Australia, and Eddie was telling me a story that back in the, I think, late 90s, he visited with Jimmy Russell to promote Wild Turkey 101. And before they went on stage, Eddie just had a look at people sitting around, and he goes to Jimmy, "Dad, why is everybody drinking beers at our event?" And Jimmy goes, "Those are not beers, son. There are Wild Turkey and Coke cans that everyone was drinking." So that's how big it is here, and it still is pretty big here as well. So yeah, our plan is to educate people.
To say we probably won't see 4-gate in a Coke can.
That would be great. I'm glad. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of educational work to basically educate people about bourbon, rye. We are opening a bar as part of that group. The bar is called Good Water. It's going to open in about 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm busy a lot of time just doing the renovation work, painting, sanding walls and things like that. It will be an American-focused whiskey bar, which 4-gate will obviously feature there, along with some other brands. There's a lot of vintage bottles at that bar. So a lot of vintage Wild Turkeys, a lot of vintage Beams, everything like that. It'll be American cocktails, American snacks, so like your poor boy sandwiches, and a lot and lots of American bourbons and rice.
God help you, poor Australians. You are just going to gain so much weight.
They're all going to be
You're
in
going to
trouble now.
single-handedly lower the life expectancy of a city by about 2 years.
It's going to be fun.
That's awesome. That's fantastic news. That's really great to hear. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, I don't have too much else to add to it. We're just really excited to get started. Look for 4Gate in Australia through honeybarrel.com.au at the start of the year. Chris, you have any other questions or anything you want to bring up today?
Not really, not right offhand. I mean, I've got to know a lot of different people from over in Australia. You got to meet some of my friends while we were in Kentucky, Bill. I know they're looking forward to it. They were all very familiar with Honey Barrel. So I think this is a great match for us. And I'm excited to see what happens and watch 4Gate grow in the Australian market.
Oh, we can't wait for it.
Yeah. I think the match is really good. I told Bobby after we had our first call with Kia that one of the things I really liked is that, Bobby and I, we were whiskey enthusiasts first before we started 4Gate. We collected it. We were drinking all the time, talking about it. I was blogging about it. We were, I was going to whiskey festivals. He was doing the same stuff before we got into the industry. And it's kind of neat that Kia comes from the same background. And same for you, Chris. I mean,
yeah,
you're an enthusiast and you come into something that you love and you find a business that it makes sense. And I just feel like it's a good match.
100%. And there's nothing better than doing something you love. And I think all of us can attest to that. Like once you're doing something you really love, it's not work, it's fun, and you're excited to get up and do it every day.
Exactly that. Every morning when I get up, I'm like, I cannot wait to get started on this stuff. Because my background was I've got a master's in architecture, and I work in human resources at a big telecom company here in Australia, and whiskey was my passion. So for the past 16, 17 years, that has been my passion. So it's just amazing that I can actually work towards that passion and bring brands I love to drink myself into Australia and get to share it with other people. So very, very excited for 4Gate to land again in Australia. I think it has huge potential here in our market, and it will definitely change the game. I'm sure of it. We'll have a lot more boutique brands coming in after 4Gate because people are just now realizing that it has huge potential in Australia.
Well, cheers to that. Tell everyone where they can find you online.
So honeybarrel.com.au is our website. We do have an Instagram page, Honey Barrel Australia as well, if you like to follow us. It is it's fairly new, so we just, I'm still old school, didn't put a lot of time into Instagram, but it is growing slowly as well. There'll be every update will be on Instagram. We will definitely do launch events. We will be doing a American whiskey show March. No. Is it March? No, on April. There's so many events happening. So there's an American whiskey show on April 13th here in Australia, in Melbourne, where 4Gate will be featured there as well. There is another American whiskey show later in the year in Sydney. And we will be doing tasting events at different bars once 4Gate lands as well. So if you guys do want to come and try some 4Gate, just keep an eye out on our Instagram. We'll have updates there as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you guys very much for joining us tonight. And if you're watching this, please like and subscribe to our channel. Check us out, 4gatewhiskey.com, and we are on Instagram and a little bit of Twitter and Facebook, and there's a community page on Facebook as well if you want kind of more up-to-the-minute updates on what's going on with 4Gate. But thanks, everyone, for watching. Have a great day, and cheers.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Cheers, everyone.